stylistically the same, but it will be a slightly different size. So you have to adapt what you've got. You can't just simply put like for like. So for instance here, this is the arch above the window on the east end, and on the inside of the arch it's like this, but it's very slightly longer. There's an extra leaf in there, and it's slightly simpler, oddly, and this is smaller on the outside, so it's actually finer work on the outside. And so I've had to adapt that to fit this.
Sorry, how do you actually do it? Just by looking?
Just by eye, yeah.
It's a bit like drawing or painting, you know.
And 20 years practice.
But it's like, you know, you've got, say, 5 leaves in that distance here, and on that one it's 5 or maybe 6 in a slightly longer or shorter distance, and you just have to work it out. You can measure it, of course, you can do any kind of trick, but it's mostly visual.
Can you draw, like, can you just draw with a pencil as well? You're all pretty good artists, and then that's...
We're all artists.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference between the Masons and us, is that most of us tend to have been to art school or have had an interest in it, or, you know, have a natural ability to it.
Yeah.
And sometimes apprentices who have even got that interest themselves will go through that system still, and they'll learn the trade, the craft, or whatever you want to call it, and then they'll move into the carving later if they so desire. So it just depends on what you want to do. But there are lots of specialisms within it, because you've got basic masonry skills, you've got the more artistic side of the carving, you've got building skills, and you go out and fixing, and then you've got the conservation side and cleaning and things like that. So there's quite a scientific element to it there if you wish. So there's quite a few different approaches to the whole shebang.
You can do drawings, can't you, or model it, or
yeah.
Lots of models up on the top there.
On this one, it's just about your choice. I chose just to go for the sketch, and then went straight into the stone. So that's just my rough idea. Some people prefer to model it. So you can see it there. And Matt's got one for this job here. You can see just the clay model there behind you.
that sort of look like I'm working to, but it's a sketch. It's not quite. It's just a model to get some ideas in the style and of what was there originally, and then just to combine it all together into one design, and then I'll carve it in that. I'll probably veer from this a bit if I want to, change it or put more detail in, or where you've got here, it twists around like on that lion's head in the window. If you look at the hair, I've left it on my model because there's no point doing it twice, and I'll probably carve it straight into the stone, but more like that, and because that's perpendicular style of hair, shall I say. And the ears vary as well. There's different styles of ears.
We
if
love
you look
ears,
around,
gorgeous
so
ears.
I've done trumpet ears, which is the same to this style. So there's one on the screen inside actually. If you go in. Pictures.
Do you find little faults inside the stone, and then that sort of dictates that you have to change your design slightly, you know, to accommodate rather than waste the stone? No, it never happens, no.
We get faults in it, but in this stuff, in some of the stone, I know what you're saying, some of the you get like little pockets.
Yeah.
And in this you can get it actually where you get like a sugar hole. But what we would do there is patch it rather than change the design.
Oh, nice. That's a sugar roll. It's now a pencil holder.
That's calcite. But that's quite an unusually big one.
And what do you patch that with?
We just cut it out and glue another piece of stone in.
So you're allowed to do that, like, yeah?
Well, in carving, because it's non-structural, the worst thing that's going to happen is that the water's going to get behind it and blow it out, and you'll have a hole there, but a long time down the line.
Yeah.
If it was a structural piece, then you wouldn't do it, because you're introducing something into the stone that's not there and will eventually fail. So that's down then to the expertise of the quarryman and the foreman mason, and they should be able to recognise any faults in stone like that. But I suppose ultimately, to answer your original question, if all those scenarios came together, it was a structural piece and it had a hole in it and you couldn't discover it until right at the very end, then you probably would have to make a decision, am I going to use this or not? But it's so rare.
That's obviously just the quality of the stone and the type of stone, and
At the quarry that we go to, I know one of the guys who works there, he's worked there for about 30 years. And it's about that time when he started when that quarry opened. And apparently there's a story that the old foreman here, I think it was called Jesse Green, who was the yard manager at the time. They were desperate to sell him the stone, and they kept coming to the Minster and saying, do you want the stone? And he said, I'll come back to you in 25 years when you get down to the good stuff. And it's about that time that we're using it. So he had a pretty good knowledge of quarries.
Do you, I know you talked earlier on about you had a little bit of freedom with what you do. Do you wish you had more freedom? Because I mean, to me, something I mill over in my mind that the work that's done defines a period in time. So, you know, I know this is extreme, but you know, if you did a Star Wars figure on that, but it's a period of time, you know, and you don't. You wonder that. I mean, I realise we're conservative and trying to suspend something in a moment in time. Do you feel? Do you have an opinion about it?
Well, I think that's exactly right. It is an opinion. It's different people have different opinions. I mean, for us, we're always trying to get back to the medieval. And what tends to happen is it tends to go through phases. I mean, like for instance, when they did after the fire in 1984, the South Transept, there was a real move for modernism at the time, and loads of architects put designs in a competition, and it was all glass and chrome, and you know, let's put a new roof in that's glass, and it'll look fantastic. It's something of our time, and I'm so glad that they didn't, because it would have looked like a 1984 monstrosity. You would have looked at it straight away and thought, God, it looks really awful. And I know I hate the word pastiche, because everybody says, oh, you know, we're trying to, it's not an original, why should we do it back in the style that it is? But to me, the building always was and always is, it's first and foremost a design. And it's got different periods within that. And if, you know, basically what we're doing is maintenance. I know it's a bit more fancy than just maintenance, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. And it's only down to, a lot of it down to our own particular interests and drive to actually put that back in its proper state as we see it, that keeps it as it is. And you could end, I mean, I know a building evolves anyway, and you know, they say that only 20% of the outside of the building is original. But if we keep changing it, it's going to end up totally different to the original design. If we try and stay true to that original design, I don't think we're going to go far wrong.
I just worry that in 200 or 300 years' time, when they look back and well, what was the boys' contribution to the place? I mean, don't get me wrong, I realise it's an enormous contribution. But in 200 or 300 years, there's not going to be out to define that moment, is there?
But you see, there already isn't. I mean, somebody did a study on the West Front of how often they've repaired the West Front, and they were talking about every 100 years all the gargoyles have been replaced, simply because they're what they call service stones, they're throwing the water away. And so from that point of view, it's that surely is just pure maintenance, and it's keeping the building going, it's keeping it alive. But you know, we're moving on anyway.